It's the honest truth. Even your father-in-law must have heard about your blunders, right? It's downright unbearable. Sharing a meal with a poor woman who grew up in a single-mother household like you. It's preposterous. You come from a different world than us. Please just leave and wait outside.
Understood. I'll leave. I politely said goodbye to the Johnson family and tried to leave. My name is Mary Johnson. I'm a 24-year-old working at Johnson Enterprises as the secretary to the CEO. I've been employed here for about 2 years. I was actually invited to join the company by the CEO Ronald Johnson while I was still in college. We were in the same business class and ended up becoming good friends because our seats were side by side. Ronald is 30 years old, and we met when he was 24. He had already graduated from a 4-year college, but he was attending college again to deepen his knowledge as a business owner, it seems. He is quite the scholar. His father is the chairman of the Johnson Group. During his university years, Ronald took over his father's will and served as the president of Johnson Group Trading. He became an elite at a young age by becoming a president. My family, on the other hand, was extremely poor. My father was a gambling addict and a hopeless casino fanatic. The debts he incurred led to my parents' divorce when I was in elementary school. My mother raised me single-handedly. I want to somehow help my mother who has been struggling. With that feeling, I kept working hard at my studies. And then, Ronald, who learned about my situation, invited me to join his company, Johnson Trading. 2 years have passed since I joined the company and started working as Ronald's secretary. I have acquired secretarial and business document skills certification, and I'm working hard for Ronald. By the way, Ronald Johnson, the president, is also my husband. I was interested in him during my university years and started dating after joining Johnson Trading. After a year of dating, I got married to Ronald. Ronald is a kind husband who, despite being a president, never acts arrogant and always takes care of me. I feel extreme happiness being able to be with him both at work and at home. I truly believe it was great that I met Ronald. Then came a certain day. A transfer notice was announced at Johnson Trading, and I couldn't hide my surprise at the name. The appointment of a vice president, and that name was Julia Johnson. I inadvertently frowned at the sight of the new vice president's name. I couldn't believe that the person I was not comfortable with was becoming vice president. This Julia Johnson is the wife of Ronald's brother, Kelly Johnson. The reason she was promoted to vice president is because she has a proven track record of reviving companies in the Johnson Group. The performance of Johnson Trading has been declining year by year. Originally dealing mainly in food and clothing, the recent epidemic has resulted in a decline in sales. Ronald was in a frenzy trying to recover the performance, but to no avail. Hence, the competent Julia Johnson was appointed as vice president. In other words, she is my sister-in-law. Why am I uncomfortable with this person? The reason goes back 1 year. I first met Julia at the wedding reception when Ronald and I got married.
She was a very beautiful and cute woman, but when I greeted her, she just said,
I got a really bad impression. Did I do something? When I tried to start a conversation with Julia.
Where are you from?
Where am I from? I'm from Cincinnati.
You not understand what I mean. I'm asking about your social status, not where you're from. Surely you're not just a commoner, are you?
I couldn't make sense of my conversation with her, and all I could say was, I'm an ordinary citizen. Then she just disappeared without a word. I haven't seen Julia since then. The much-anticipated day of the internal personnel change. Next day arrived. Julia was appointed as vice president, and Ronald and I went to the station to pick her up. I was nervous about seeing her again after a long time.
I didn't know what to say, so all I could say was, Julia, nice to meet you. She just said, oh, it's been a while, got into the limousine arranged by Ronald and headed straight to Johnson Trading.
When Ronald and I entered the president's office, I heard words from him that made me doubt my ears. He wanted me to be Julia's secretary. When I asked why me, he said it was because Julia had requested it. Apparently, Ronald couldn't refuse because she was his brother's wife. I reluctantly accepted when he pleaded with me. The job is the same as the president's secretary, managing the schedule, assisting with tasks, and answering the vice president's phone calls. However, since the person was my brother-in-law's wife and an unknown entity, I found it hard to do. Still, I had to do it. In the afternoon, I entered the vice president's office where Julia was. I greeted her and tried to start a conversation in the hope of getting along with her a little bit.
I'm so glad that you're the vice president. Julia, I look forward to working with you.
I greeted with a smile, but she said, I don't care about that. Just tell me tomorrow's schedule.
For as height, to reachers at the crime, I'm awfully angry, but I held it in, apologized with I'm sorry, and explained it to her with my notebook.
What's with this arrogant attitude? But she is a member of the Johnson family. I didn't want to cause a big trouble and didn't want to cause trouble to Ronald, so I decided to do my job while holding back. That day, Ronald came home to the apartment when I got home.
When I went to greet him at the entrance, he said, what's wrong? You look pale.
I just responded with, I'm fine. I couldn't tell him after all. One day, I made a grave mistake. I accidentally swapped Ronald and Julia's schedules and only realized this when I received a phone call from Julia.
She stated that she had not scheduled the meeting that I had told her about.
Looking at the schedule, I saw that I had relayed the details of the meeting meant for Ronald to Julia instead. I realized my mistake, but it was too late by then.
I was rebuked by Julia, saying, I apologized to the client, but they didn't forgive me, and we lost a hard-won deal worth $200,000 because of you. She also lamented about the fact that she had to put up with unwanted advances from the lecherous president of the company we were dealing with to secure the deal, all of which ended up being not due to my error.
Just upon hearing that Julia returned to the office, I immediately went to the president's office. I walked in, and first thing, I apologized deeply.
But Julia shouted back, "Sorry isn't enough."
Her face was as red as a demon's. I was at a loss for words when Ronald stepped in.
This time it's true that Mary is at fault, but there's nothing we can do about it now.
Teacher Kmaitres Ronald tried to mediate the situation, but Julia snidely remarked she'll just make the same mistake again. This is why uneducated commoners are useless.
Upon hearing this comment, I recognized my fault but wondered what she meant by not having a decent education. It felt like my personality and life were being denied, which fueled my irritation. But the mistake was mine.
Unable to retort, I stayed silent. Oh!
However, Julia turned away with a dismissive HBN.
After getting permission from Ronald to leave, I exited the president's office. I went to the company cafe to reflect, pondering why I made the mistake. Just then, Julia walked in. I rushed to her saying, "Julia, I'm sincerely sorry for what happened.
I'm forgiving you this time because the president asked me to, but don't think there will be a next time. I can fire a commoner like you anytime."
This was the last straw. I understand and accept my mistake. But what does being a commoner have to do with anything? Excuse me, is being a commoner relevant here?
What? Who are you to argue? If you had a proper education, you wouldn't have made such a mistake.
Well, I think my mistake and my home environment are unrelated. Is there something against commoners? I inadvertently confronted Julia.
She sighed as if exasperated and said, "Never mind."
Until a week later, Ronald, Julia, and I were set to attend the head office's executive meeting. We had a pre-meeting lunch as the meeting was scheduled in the afternoon. After thoroughly checking the topics and materials, I felt well prepared this time. As our meeting neared conclusion and Ronald left for the restroom, I also went to the restroom at that time. I felt nervous about attending the meeting with Julia, fearing more criticisms. I felt a salty taste as I sipped the water in my glass, but dismissed it as my imagination and finished the drink to quench my thirst. We joined the executive meeting at 3 p.m. It progressed smoothly, but suddenly I felt an urge to use the restroom. The feeling was so strong that I could hear my stomach rumbling. There was no way I could hold it in. Yet, I didn't have the courage to interrupt this solemn meeting by declaring, "Excuse me, restroom," and rushing out. Regardless of my reluctance, the urge to go kept tormenting me. "Ronald, everyone. I'm sorry." Repeat the floor facing the deluge, the disaster, the guerrilla rainstorm. I rushed out of the meeting room and into the restroom, where I stayed for nearly 30 minutes. Everything was over, and I opened the door and stepped outside. I was feeling incredibly unwell from dehydration and exhaustion. It seemed that the meeting was over too, and Ronald and Julia were sitting in the company cafe. Ronald was looking at me with concern, but Julia had a smirk on her face. That's when a suspicion crossed my mind. but the water I had drunk earlier had a strong salty taste.
When I returned from the toilet and sat down clutching my stomach.
But Julia just said, did you eat something weird and get food poisoning? In a sarcastic tone.
Could it be that she mixed a laxative in while I was gone? But why? Would she do something like that? Out of anger for the lost deal. I don't know, but I did have diarrhea after drinking that water. I found myself plunged in doubt and suspicion.
Ronald told me, go home and rest today. So I decided to go home.
The diarrhea was better, but my stomach hurt. I laid my head on the cafe table until I calmed down. After a while, the pain subsided, and I decided to head home. But before that, I had to inform the vice president of tomorrow's schedule. I headed to the vice president's office and knocked on the door.
When I did, I heard Julia's voice saying, come in. But when I entered the room, she said, oh, it's you.
Of course, she didn't bother asking about my health.
What do you wanna? Make it quick. I'm busy.
Julia, you put something in the water, didn't you?
At my question, Julia smirked and said, what are you talking about?
Don't play dumb. At lunchtime when Ronald and I left our seats, didn't you mix something in my glass?
Oh my, what a sudden accusation. It's completely unreasonable to blame others. Get out of here, you fool.
Furthermore, I saw a box of laxatives on her desk.
When Julia noticed my gaze, she said, well, I might as well tell you the truth. Yes, I mixed a drug into your glass.
Why would you do such a thing? What did I ever do to you? Why have you been like this since we met?
It's simple. Because you're a commoner, that's all. You're unnecessary to the Johnson family.
Her flippant reason for considering me a commoner left me not just angry, but dumbfounded, and tears welled up in my eyes.
Unfortunately, I'll have to fire you. No matter how much you tell the president about me, you have no evidence, so it's impossible. Plus, if you consult anyone, you'll be making an enemy of the Johnson family. A rift will form between my husband, Ellie, and Ronald, and the brotherly relationship will become the worst because of you. If you're okay with that, feel free to consult.
She was right. If I told Ronald, the Johnson family would be in turmoil. I had no choice but to endure in silence. The tears of frustration wouldn't stop, and I navigated through the blurry vision to head home. Arnold worried about my sobbing figure. I wanted to talk, but if I did, things would get serious.
Ronald asked what happened. There's it about Julia.
After much hesitation, I said, actually, Julia, I ended up talking about everything, the past events and the incidents at today's meeting. Once I started speaking, I couldn't stop, and I ended up speaking my mind. And then, I couldn't stay in the Johnson family anymore. But it was because of me that a major deal fell through. I was just a drag.
Arnold, I'm sorry. Let's get divorced. If I'm gone, you can stay good with Billy. With Julia, I'm an unnecessary person. I'm an unnecessary person.
Alan, don't despair. I'm no good without Mary. I love Mary. your ass sock and I want you by my side every moment. That's why I made you my secretary. So, please don't leave me. I'll talk about such sad things like breaking up.
One day at the end of the year, Ronald asked me to come to a dinner party where the entire Johnson family would gather. Of course, Julia would be there. I decided to go to the dinner party. After all, it was an important event. And then, I made up my mind and left the house. The staff greeted me and showed me the way. My in-laws, Billy and Julia, were already at the table. I greeted everyone.
Of course. Julia acted sullenly with HMAJ. It was an expected attitude.
When Ronald and I sat down, Julia first said, "I feel sick. I really feel sick. Having dinner with this poor trash. It pollutes the atmosphere. It will spoil the caviar we are going to have."
At this statement, my father-in-law said, "What are you talking about?" in anger.
It's the truth. You must have heard about her gaffe too, right? It's so annoying. It's not a joke to have dinner with a commoner from a single mother household. You're from a different world. Just go out. It's better if you wait outside.
Understood then. I said bye to everyone in the Johnson family and was about to leave.
I heard my father-in-law suddenly yell, "Then you should go home."
What? What do you mean, father-in-law?
Announce your butts. You're the unnecessary one in the Johnson family.
What are you talking about, father-in-law? I am the vice president of Johnson Corporation and Billy's wife.
She seemed to want to argue, but my father-in-law shook his head and said, "It seems Billy wants to divorce you."
At that word, Julia glared at Billy.
Oh, Billy, is that true?
Yes, I'm tired of your high-handed attitude that looks down on people and you don't do any housework. You're good at your job, and there are parts I respect, but otherwise, you're done as a human being. You're the one who's in the way. What? Furthermore, it seems that my father-in-law had heard from Ronald about what Julia had done to me so far. That Billy didn't like her, and about me, my father-in-law seemed to have planned to cut ties with Julia at this opportunity. That's what the dinner was for.
Don't say such ridiculous things. After all, father-in-law, do you have any proof? The proof that I made Mary sick.
At this time, I thought it was time for revenge. Everyone in the Johnson family is on my side. There's nothing to fear. As a plea of patience, I remembered on the spur of the moment and pulled out the pen I always stick in my chest. Then Julia made a puzzled face and then laughed out loud.
What are you thinking, showing such a thing? For complacency will end now.
Without any hesitation, I pressed the switch on the pen. Don't play dumb. Didn't you mix something into my glass when Ronald and I left our seats during lunch? Ain't when my voice played. Julia's face turned pale. Yes, this pen is not just a pen. It's a pen tape recorder. It's always recording to not forget the content of conversations at negotiations and meetings. Thinking that there might be something. I kept Julia's voice as evidence, and now was the perfect time to play it. Julia covered her face with both hands and was trembling. It's not over yet. Julia, you didn't really marry Billy out of love. You married him to expand the Lee Group's power, didn't you?
What are you talking about? It's Ronald took out his smartphone and started playing a certain voice recording. That poor woman is unnecessary to the Lee Group. Instead, I will incorporate the Johnson Group into the Lee Group eventually. Suddenly, Julia covered her face and screamed, "Stop! I feel so." Was this her soliloquy? In doing so, my status will rise even higher. How secure! Ha ha ha!
After that, a long conversation that seemed like Julia's monologue continued.
But once I become the next president of Johnson Corporation, I can frequent high-end male strip clubs even more than now. And the recording also contained her calling out the names of her favorite strippers, saying, "I love you," and "I adore you."
I was hearing this. Billy showed his anger. Or you're obsessed with strippers.
Why did she feel embarrassed after the voice recording was played?
The Lee Group that Julia mentioned is a rival of the Johnson Group. She originally was the daughter of the Lee Group. However, it was said that she had a love marriage with Billy, but that seemed to be different. She might have been forced into a political marriage as a spy for the Lee Group.
You will divorce Billy and be dismissed as the vice president. Furthermore, we will completely withdraw from the Lee Group. And we've been getting along through mutual encouragement. But this is a total break.
Julia's face turned pale. Furthermore, the mother-in-law, who had been listening to the whole thing, opened her mouth.
Julia, you called Mary a poor person and a commoner. But what I can't forgive the most is that you denied that she was raised in a single-parent family. I, too, was poor and raised in a single-parent family when I was young. You don't know the human heart, that you're the one who's not needed.
It was the first time I had seen the mother-in-law so angry. I was surprised, as she always gave me a gentle and smiling impression. Everyone's gaze gathered on Julia. She pounded the table with both hands and stood up vigorously.
Remember this. But the Lee Group will never forgive you.
She spat out this parting shot and left the restaurant. Honestly, my heart felt very relieved. Everyone protected me. Fix a preacher, I no longer needed to leave the Johnson family. As I felt relieved, tears began to flow. Seeing this, Ronald and my parents, in-law and Billy, all comforted me. 2 weeks after the dinner party, a call came from the chairman of the Lee Group.
I remembered Julia's words. The Lee Group will never forgive you.
However, the contents of the call were unexpected.
I sincerely apologize for the tremendous inconvenience my daughter, Julia, has caused you.
The chairman himself had made an apology call. Apparently, he had heard the detailed story from the chairman of the Johnson Group, my father-in-law, and when he asked Julia, she readily admitted to it.
The Lee Group does not think about crushing the Johnson Group at all. This trouble is my responsibility as a parent. I'm truly sorry.
It turned out that everything had started from Julia's delusion.
Moreover, the reason why Julia mixed that thing for me seemed to be a grudge against my previous rebuttal. Does being a commoner matter?
Oh, it seemed that she couldn't stand being told various things by me, a commoner even though she was in the upper class. She is indeed a woman with high pride. But some time passed, and I received another invitation to a high-end restaurant from my in-laws, and I went to the restaurant with Ronald. The place was the same restaurant as before. There, my in-laws were already present, and the four of us gathered around the table. My father-in-law tried to order. Then 2 staff members came over, and I was surprised to see one of them. The staff member was none other than Julia.
Why are you guys here?
Why are you working here?
I have no choice. My father told me to gain experience in customer service and learn about society. Really? Even though I, a lady, have to do this.
She turned red in the face with anger, and the stern-looking male staff behind her said, "Hey! Don't keep the customers waiting. Take their orders."
Yes. I'm sorry.
She was almost in tears as she took the order. Honestly, it was very funny. The dish was delivered, and while we were enjoying its taste, we heard the male staff yelling again. When I looked in the direction of the voice, Julia was crying and apologized to the male staff. It seemed that she was being scolded for making mistakes in orders and behaving rudely to customers. Eats the delicious food while laughing at the sight of her, who had changed so much, and Beckham said, "And you're just an obstacle." I said, "You're the subordinate." Is having to breathe the same air as an uneducated idiot in the morning is going to ruin my job for the rest of the day. Every day, the other employees and I had to put up with the abuse of an elite chief who had graduated from a prestigious university. Mysteriums one day, when I couldn't put up with her anymore and countered, she said, "You should notify your bosses or something." I am one of the elite. Nobody is going to listen to a dropout like you. The chief looked completely victorious. However, one word from the president who passed by changed her attitude completely. "Hello, my name is Daniel Smith. I got a job as a sales at the subsidiary of a certain company right after graduating from high school. My father was injured in a traffic accident with a motorcycle and could no longer work properly, so I worked after high school instead of going to college. I got a job at this company through my father's introduction to support my family instead of my father. At Six Sections, this company's employees got along well with each other, and it was a pleasure to work there. My boss is nice, and my colleagues are easy to get along with, so I don't have to worry too much about work. However, I'm feeling a little down today. Smith, isn't the meeting you're having today with the head office? Daniel, yeah, it is. Colleague, seriously? Then that person must be coming here, right? I should have taken the payday off. Daniel, you don't deal with her directly, so don't say anything about it. I'm more depressed in the morning. When the colleague was about to continue the conversation, "Hey, why were no employees at the entrance?" They were expecting me, and this is how they reacted. According to the colleague, see, best of luck. Smith beckoned to Daniel, "Okay," and the colleague muttered something and then dashed away from there. "You'll remember that traitor." The owner of the voice glared at me, getting left behind. It's Jones. There's really only a bunch of unkind people in this place. It annoys me that I have to go out of my way to speak with these people. Daniel, please accept my apologies. She is the manager, Jones, who travels from the headquarters on a regular basis for meetings, etc. She graduated from a prestigious university, and as such, she was hired as a mid-career executive candidate. On the other hand, she was arrogant and made fun of the subsidiary's employees. Bones stated whatever. They are all, as usual, uneducated and inept. You make even me look like an idiot. I need to get out of here as soon as possible, so please begin the meeting.
Could you please wait a little longer until one more person in charge arrives? He's already on his way.
Jones exclaimed. What? You're going to keep me waiting? First and foremost, aren't you supposed to be ready to start as soon as I arrive from the headquarters? You are all completely incapable. I'm so sorry. Daniel, you arrived 20 minutes earlier than expected, but you are unreasonable. I want to talk back to her, but the person I was speaking with was from the head office, and she was an elite recognized by the head office. I'm not sure what the company will do if I go against her. We complained to each other at the subsidiary company, but in the end, we never oppose them and always endure. No. I was working as usual, then one morning, as I was driving to work as usual, I noticed an elderly lady crouching down distressfully in the middle of the road. It should have been an emergency, but the people around me didn't want to get involved or didn't know what to do, so they pretended not to notice her and walked past her.
Are you okay, Granny?
I dashed over to her and called out, but the old lady was not responding because her breathing was labored and she was unable to speak properly. I'm going to call an ambulance right away. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911%. We all went to the hospital together when the ambulance arrived. It's okay to go home, the nurse said. We'll take care of it over here until her family arrives. I had already informed the company that I will be late, and I was concerned about the grandmother, so I stayed with her until her family arrived. Fortunately, she was not in danger, and she could leave the hospital after a few days. We were overjoyed. A few weeks later, suddenly, I got a transfer order to a branch office of the headquarters. It was a direct order from the president of the headquarters. I was debating whether I should go to the main office, but my colleague said, "It's proof that your effort has been noticed. Go ahead and give it your all." They encouraged me, and I decided to transfer. My first day at the headquarters was hectic. First, I decided to greet each department individually. But on my way there, I found the chief's bag in the corridor and hurried up to greet her, but she noticed me and gave me a disgusted look. Jones said, "What are you doing here? You moron, aren't you a little out of place?" Atanaino, a good morning, Chief. I've been assigned here. Situations. Oh, you're being relocated here. What exactly are they thinking? The chief ignored my greeting and swore at me. Having to breathe the same air as an uneducated idiot in the morning is going to ruin my entire day at work. Chief, I'm sorry for making you feel that way. Jones, oh, please stop talking. Please do not approach me. I'm busy. Keep out of my way. I told Daniel chief is in a bad mood today, and she wouldn't let me finish what I was saying. She waved her hand around as if attempting to flick off the swarming flies. Trying to continue the conversation at this point would be pointless. I gave up and returned to work. When I returned to the floor where the chief was, I overheard her cursing her subordinate. "I'm sorry," says the employee. The employee's error was discovered, and she is very upset about it. The employee who is being yelled at tightened his fists, bowed his head, and endured.
Well, Jones, if this is the case, it would be far preferable to have another employee work, for me rather than you. Jones, you're no longer useful to me. Get your desk cleaned up and out of my way.
After saying these words to the employee, she turned to face me, and our eyes met. She already looked unhappy, but she twisted her face even more and glared at me.
Jones, what? Will you go back? Didn't tell you to stay out of my way this morning.
Daniel, please relax, Chief. I have something to tell you today.
Don't stop talking. Everyone is arrogant. I don't have time for stupid, incompetent people like you.
The chief left the floor and slammed the door as hard as she could, and talked to the employee who had just been yelled at by the chief, frowning at the sound of the door closing violently. "Is that chief's typical attitude?" I asked. But according to the employee, it's not just common, it's something that happens every day. She constantly disrespects me, that woman. In frustration, the employee raised his voice. "Daniel, quiet. The chief will hear you. If the chief hears him, she must say something bad to him." I did everything I could to calm him down. I've been enduring this for a long time, but I can't take it anymore. Bristly employee stumbled toward his desk and pulled a white envelope from a drawer. "Vapurian, don't tell me this is a resignation letter," I said. According to the employee, yes, it's something I've been considering for a while. My previous workplace was more peaceful and each day was fulfilling and enjoyable. But since the chief has arrived, this place has changed into hell. He rubbed his desk sadly. On his desk, there were numerous documents and notes. He must have liked his job and worked tirelessly.
I understand how you feel, but don't you feel frustrated that all of your hard work has been squandered by only a chief?
Horse the curse is aggravating. I'm aware of how hard I've worked here. I've been at this job longer than she has, and I've done my best, but this is...
I can feel his frustration and sadness, which is nowhere for it to go.
Chief says things like that, but there must be employees who trust and rely on you. Vita, why don't you stay a little longer for those people? Add a deal, a sign for those people.
Don't worry. I'll handle it. And, it is not you who should quit.
What exactly do you mean? I went to the chief, leaving the questioning employee behind. We cannot have any more employees who are mistreated like him. That is why I've come here. I quickly followed the chief and found her in the break room, drinking tea. "Chief, may I?" I asked. The chief noticed me and looked brokenhearted.
Are you still here? Though, you're as persistent as a fly. I'm taking a break. Please leave me.
The chief looked tired, possibly because she had just raised her voice. I pushed myself to say to her, Chief, I will conduct a thorough investigation into your harsh words and actions towards our employees. You may be subjected to appropriate measures based on the results. My abrupt words stunned the chief.
What are you talking about? Have you started playing hero to cover for that incompetence?
No, I'm not.
Listen, why don't you go tell your bosses about it? I am an elite. Oh, you should know that I have the support of my superiors. Obi will isn't a dropout, like you, from the subsidiary.
The chief exudes triumph and laughs hysterically. Then, out of nowhere, a man appeared from the other side. According to the president, Smith, it's you. How are things going for you? I'm trying to do my best, thanks to you.
Hello, President. What a happy coincidence that you've come. What happened to the grumpy chief from a while ago?
She pretends to be an excellent chief to those people who are in higher positions than herself. President, I'm glad to hear you're doing well. Have you established rapport with the new branch manager?
Hi, Ian.
That's Jones, eh? The chief is befuddled and stares blankly. President, it is Smith standing right in front of you. What? Have you not been briefed? Gus Jones, this inept employee from a subsidiary company? You're a great jokester, boss. The president, on the other hand, regarded the chief with suspicion. President, what are you talking about? Are you sure? I'm not making any jokes, you understand. He is now the branch manager of this branch office. Don't be so impolite as to label him incompetent. And what the hell? The chief made a drawn face at me. The turtles besides, Daniel, I couldn't tell you because you ignored me earlier. I have informed. Oh no, such an illiterate incompetent. The chief's face had turned blue, and she appeared to be about to collapse. When he sees such a chief, the president reluctantly opened his mouth. President, let me tell you something about this fantastic opportunity. This was his father's business. He was unable to work properly after being injured in a car accident, so I took charge. And is he the former president's son? That's correct. I've been trying to convince him to relocate to the headquarters, but he's so stubborn that he didn't come. That's Daniel, I apologize. I liked that place, and I was satisfied. And Jane Jones. So what brought you here unexpectedly? Why didn't you just keep working at the subsidiary? The chief was out of her mind and forgot she was in front of the president. That the president, who had only seen the best of the chief, was unlikely to recognize this type of chief. He was taken aback while he is opening his eyes so widely. A president, I made a strong request of him. He is my mother's lifesaver. Jones, benefactor. What about the president's mother? Yes, the elderly lady I rescued a few weeks ago was the president's mother. But when the president rushed in from the hospital entrance, while he was waiting for the family, I was taken aback. President, I heard that he was the only one who went to see her first and called an ambulance, even though others pretended not to notice her and passed by. I didn't want him to be buried in such a subsidiary. But Jones, So you personally appointed this guy as a branch manager? The president nodded and said, "That's correct." I wondered if I was qualified to be the branch manager on the day I was appointed. Guessing I had been working for a subsidiary, then I was suddenly asked to lead a branch manager of the head office. Then, after hearing from the president, my father called and asked me to be the branch manager of the head office. Then, after hearing from the president, my father called and asked me to support the company he had built, and I made up my mind. According to the president, that's why I've given him the position of branch manager going forward. Don't be disrespectful any longer and pay close attention to what Smith says. The president said sternly to the chief before leaving the room. Daniel, that is the reason, Chief. I'm back in front of the chief again. Daniel, you're mistreating not only your subsidiaries, but also your direct subordinates. I understand the frustration and sadness of being mocked because I am a low-educated incompetent. No, I don't want to, says Jones. But Daniel, and now that I'm the branch manager and have witnessed this situation, I can't ignore it, so please be prepared. As to Cations, no. A chief sat down on the spot and began to weep because her elite pride was severely wounded. It's no surprise. The person she had always looked down on, because of being less educated than her, was suddenly in a higher position than she is. And he told me she was going to get rid of. Thus ended my difficult days. The next day, a detailed fact-finding investigation of the chief was conducted. As a result of interviewing several employees and subsidiaries who had relations with her, a number of terrible comments and actions were reported. The punishment was on disciplinary grounds. Upon receiving the news, the chief left the company as if she has no soul without talking back. For employee, the chief looked very depressed. Daniel, she had high self-esteem, so I guess it's understandable. Employee, by the way, are you sure you want me to replace Chief? Daniel, I felt I could trust you. The chief was fired, and in that vacant slot, he appointed him who had been yelled at by her. He had been with the company for many years, and was enthusiastic about his work. At the course, I had also checked out his past work performance. And he experienced the frustration and anger of being abused by former Chief Jones. Actually, I knew he would not do the same thing she did, and would be a good boss who could understand the feelings of his employees. And as for me, I tried to do my job from the same perspective as the employees, without being confined to the position of branch manager, referring to a subsidiary with which I was in good relations before. There I interviewed each employee on a regular basis and asked for their opinions. I also held study sessions for employees in higher positions on how to lead and tried to deal with employees as much as possible. But thanks to these efforts, the atmosphere of the company gradually improved. And it became a good place to work, reminding me of the subsidiary where I used to work. The president said, "Well, Smith, I'm sorry about Jones, but thanks to you, this company is doing very well." Daniel, I'm afraid. At a later date, I was called into the president's office for coffee. He wanted to talk to me about the recent workplace. The president said, I'm getting old. Eventually, I'd like Smith to succeed me. Upping hesitation, Daniel, with all due respect. But Mr. President, I don't see myself becoming president. President! What? Why do you refuse? Mr. Father would want the same thing. Oh, Daniel, I want to be on the same side as the employees, supporting this company together from the same perspective, and being involved with the customers. It will be very difficult to do that once I become president, won't it? And the president scowled at my words and then left. Ellie the president. Ha ha ha, you really are a funny guy. Literally you. Am I an eccentric? President? No, that's fine. That's exactly the kind of Smith I'm looking for. The president tapped me on the shoulder a little harder. President, you have a meeting soon, don't you? Go work hard. At the Fort Decals, I stood frozen, holding a photo I had discovered in my husband's apartment where he lived alone for work. The patient Cidello in the photo, he's dressed in a black tuxedo, standing next to a woman who isn't me. She's in a wedding dress and they're both grinning from ear to ear. And next to the photo, documents needed to issue a marriage certificate. Why would he have this? The documents listed my husband Ryan's name, and next to it, Jessica was written. Jessica? But this photo is unmistakable. This can't be real. The woman is someone I've known very well for a long time. Shocked, I slumped to the floor. I wish this was just a bad dream. No matter how many times I muttered it, the reality in front of me didn't change. My name is Lauren, and I'm 34 years old. I married Ryan 2 years ago. He gets along well with my parents. Whenever we visit my hometown, he shares drinks with Dad and sends flowers to Mom, who loves beautiful and cute things every month. He's a genuinely kind person. About 6 months after our happy married life began, Brian got transferred. The twist. His new location was in the same state as my parents. Normally, I'd happily go with him, but I had just become a manager at work. If I go with him, I'll have to quit my job, but I've worked hard and finally started to see results. I don't want to give that up. Be conflicted. I agonized daily, but he would always comfort me.
Even if we're apart, my feelings for you won't change. I love you.
Giving me with these comforting words, he moved for his job. It goes without saying, I fell for him even more. For a year and a half, we kept in touch daily and he always came back to me on weekends.
I'm always rooting for you. Lauren Satin. I'll keep working on.
He'd say that every time we met. I was on cloud 9. Hey, I'll come to your place for your birthday next week. Ryan.
No way.
I always feel bad that you're the one visiting. Plus, Picade. I want to see where you're living now. I said this, believing he'd be pleased. But then...
Oh, you can come.
Why?
I get an important work assignment that day. Or is it, if you come over, I'll be doing overtime, and it'll get late, and, I feel bad making you wait.
but it's your birthday.
Work doesn't care about birthdays.
Well, in that case, I'll clean the apartment and cook something nice for us.
Byron usually swamped with work every day.
Don't worry about it. So, reluctantly, we decided to celebrate Ryan's birthday at my place the following week. However, I'd taken a personal day off for his birthday, so I secretly decided to visit him where he was working out of town. See, on the day, although his place was in the same state as our hometown, it was an unfamiliar station, so I had to rely on the address to find his apartment. But along the way, I spotted a grocery store and began making a mental shopping list to match the feast I was planning to cook. Of course, I'd also hidden his favorite brand shirt in my bag as a birthday gift. He's going to love this, I thought to myself, finally locating the apartment where he lived alone. The moment I used the spare key that I had but never needed, I was filled with indescribable excitement and joy. What if he didn't want me to come because his place is a mess? But then, when I opened the door, what I saw inside was completely different from what I had expected. What is this? Pink frilly curtains hung by the windows. A red heart-shaped cushion lay on a white sofa. Did I get the wrong apartment? I double-checked the nameplate outside, and no, it was definitely Ryan's place. What's going on? He confused. I cautiously entered the apartment. That's when I spotted something shocking on a shelf next to the closet. Is this a photo of... It was a wedding photo, featuring a bride and a groom. Worse yet, there were documents necessary for issuing a marriage certificate signed by Ryan and Jessica. This can't be. I wish this was a bad dream. Devastated, I slumped to the floor.
My thoughts are always with you, even when I'm away. Just wait for me here. I promise I'll come back.
That's what my husband told me. He always said, "I love you." Learn whenever he returned. I've been holding on to those words, and now this betrayal. Shaken to my core, tears uncontrollably started flowing. I don't know how much time had passed when.
Let's go back to that restaurant soon.
Let's do it for Jessica's birthday next time.
And voices I recognized came from behind the door.
Hey, what happened to the key?
Oh no, did you lose it? Should I go out?
I could hear them fumbling for keys near the front door. I don't want to see them now. What should I do? In a panic, I grabbed my bag and shoes and hid in the closet. The door opened and the footsteps sounded closer. Holding my breath, the two figures appeared in front of me. The man was undeniably my husband. Ryan. Next to him, a woman dressed in designer clothes looked up at him with a smitten expression. It was my mom.
Hey, wear the branded shirt I gifted you.
And the gift she handed him is the same one I'd picked out for him. He puts it on with a pleased grin.
You look great in it.
You know, accidentally told Lauren I wanted this too.
Then maybe she's buying the same thing right now, not knowing we've already exchanged gifts. You better wear the one I gave you. Ryan.
Sticking out from the closet, I see them lean in for a kiss. This is really happening right in front of me, just as I feared. Why is this happening? Is this some kind of joke? I think, as my mind goes blank, swirling with these thoughts. Pleasant with shock and confusion. I can only stand still in the closet, hoping they don't find me. I can't handle this anymore. I think. Then I hear words that make me doubt my ears.
Ever thought this would go so smoothly?
Aspiring with your own daughter to marry me. You're something else. Jessica?
I have a husband, you know. If we get caught, I'd lose a lot in the divorce settlement.
That their faces reveal smug smiles. Go smoothly? What plan? I think. Brian and I met through a high school friend.
I was in jail, but it's like, my job was my life back then, and seeing this, a friend said to me, I was like, he's a good guy. Had Todd's introduced to Ryan.
There was no way my mom was involved.
I talked him into it when he came to the place where I was working part-time.
Jessica is persuasive.
You fell for it too, Ryan.
I got lucky when I fell for it. I'm so glad I approached Jessica back then.
When Ryan asked me to have coffee during that part-time job, I thought it was a joke. But look at the happy times it's led to.
I thought you were only a bit older than me when I approached you. Ever thought there'd be a 20-year age difference? It's so beautiful. It's like white people's, and that it's hard to believe.
I still am, Arn.
This isn't going down without a fight.
What is going on? Was our meeting engineered by these two all along? And here I was, loving my husband sincerely. They must have been laughing at me behind my back all this time. They must have been laughing at me behind my back all this time. I discreetly pulled out my phone from my bag and began recording their actions. Sitting side by side on the sofa, intertwining their legs, they whispered to each other and chuckled. When my husband started to unbutton my mom's blouse and kiss her, a surge of nausea hit me. I quickly covered my mouth and forced it down.
Please don't come here. Did she notice me?
Gitchductory. I held my breath and she walked past me to pick up a photo frame from the adjacent shelf.
Nice to see you've put up this picture.
Also, of course, it's a picture from our secret wedding, and
I hope the day comes soon when I can submit all the documents for our marriage license.
I could divorce Laura anytime, you know?
I'm sorry, just a little longer.
When will you finally pay off that $70 debt?
It'll take a few more years. Till then, my husband is the perfect ATM.
Same here, but
A calling dad, who's been by her side for over 35 years, since she got pregnant with me at 20, an ATM. I couldn't believe such a terrible woman is my mom. And to think my husband calls me an ATM and laughs about it is just cruel.
They're idiots, aren't they?
Or false for anything I say. She even believed I was working today on my birthday.
She's foolish, indeed.
And your husband has no clue, does he?
Of course not. I put on the act of the perfect wife in front of him.
You're classic, Jessica.
He travels so much, he'll never find out.
The husband I loved, the mother I trusted, turned out to be my greatest enemies. I was seething with anger. He lifted her up and headed towards the bed, turning off the lights. In the dim room, voices I never wanted to hear echoed in my brain. I couldn't even cry out of despair.
They won't get away with this. I'll expose them to the end of the earth.
It's again recording them again after sending the video and address to someone.
I'll document all the evidence.
Fighting back the rising disgust and nausea, I read it. Finally, a long-awaited message arrived.
I'm outside the front door now.
Backup had arrived. The person I messaged was, of course, Dad. Now it's time for revenge. Inhaling deeply, I swung the closet doors open.
Happy birthday, Rian.
I threw the gift I was holding at the two bewildered, naked individuals, unlocked the front door, and let Dad in.
Oh, yeah, so... what's going on?
What's going on?
Guess, what are you doing?
I thought you were on a business trip.
Learn why?
And Sulfires. I came to surprise you on your birthday, but it looks like I'm the one who got surprised.
Lauren, this is a misunderstanding.
I saw everything from the closet, and I have evidence.
Well, you see...
Husband was so flustered, he couldn't get any words out.
Asuko, explain yourself.
Listen, this isn't what it looks like. I didn't want this.
I've already seen Lauren's video.
This was the first time I ever saw Dad, usually a calm person, so incredibly angry. His eyes were filled with rage.
Yeah, I see Clem. You're,
Trying to hug me, he extended the same hand that had just been holding Mom.
Disgusting. I don't want him to be touched by trash like you.
When I brushed his hand away, Mom stepped in to defend Ryan.
Excuse me? You should be the one apologizing. What's this victim actor hurting me and Dad?
Don't you dare speak to Jessica that way.
Excessively, I was completely dumbfounded by the two of them covering for each other of them covering for each other.
Is it normal for a mom to get involved with her daughter's husband?
Shut up! I regret ever giving birth to a loser like you. I wish you were as beautiful as me. Then maybe it wouldn't be such a waste. You should be grateful I even arranged your marriage to Ryan.
Her words struck me deeply, making me falter for a moment.
You'd never have gotten married otherwise.
That's so cruel.
Just as I was on the verge of tears.
How could you say such things to your own daughter?
Well, she's never been cute to begin with.
Enough is enough. Fine, you promised to
Ed's glare silenced both of them.
Enough of this farce.
But Dad brought out 2 divorce papers. The papers. They were the ones he'd picked up from the courthouse, on his way here, per my request.
If you sign these papers right now, then I'll go ahead and get you now.
Dad tossed the necessary paperwork for issuing Ryan and Jessica's marriage. Certificate in front of them.
Wait a minute. We don't have to get a divorce.
I think divorce on record will look bad for my job.
But you said you wanted to get married quickly.
That was just like heat of the moment.
Stop joking around. I never want your face again. Sign now.
When I tossed a ballpoint pen at him from the shelf, perhaps overwhelmed by my stern tone and attitude, he reluctantly signed.
Please. I didn't want us to break up.
Is it because I'm your ATM?
Uptime, twins.
You won't be able to pay back that 70 debt if we divorce, right? What's that debt for anyway?
It's,
You were in nightclubs a few years back, weren't you? But you know, aren't you?
what?
You're also in receptions. I was gonna let it go since you weren't a good thousand as you seem to straighten out, but now you've done something even worse.
Please overlook this too.
Atats also extended a ballpoint pen. Buckling under the pressure, Mom also signed the divorce papers. But once he had the 2 completed divorce applications in hand, Ed stood up.
We don't ever have to come back.
Same goes for you. And by the way, I'll be seeking alimony in the divorce proceedings from both sides.
At your tears, I'll get a lawyer to direct all communication that way. I'll inform your company that we're getting a divorce. Goodbye.
Edidai left the room while the 2 of them continued to shout at each other, Erhab in excess. After that, through the lawyer, we sought $30,000 each in alimony during the divorce proceedings. Since Dad did the same, that's a total of $120,000 in alimony just from the divorce case. Furthermore, Mom had an additional debt of $70,000. She paid it off in one go, but the place she borrowed from seemed a bit sketchy. My ex-husband felt uncomfortable at his job and resigned, moving away with Jessica. Rumor has it, it wasn't so much a move as they were taken somewhere by the people they borrowed money from. Ever since that day, I've been afraid to trust people. But fortunately, I'm supported by my kind-hearted dad and trustworthy colleagues. It may take time, but I believe a happy future awaits, and I'll keep moving forward. Another transfer, huh? My husband Oliver came home, clearly down in the dumps. So, where's the next assignment?
Oh, it's actually near my parents' house. But, what to say, the term is about a year, so I was thinking maybe we could live with them for a while.
The proposal to move in with his parents caught me off guard. My name is Bella. I'm 33 and work part-time, while taking care of the house. Oliver's job involves a lot of transfers, so I stick with part-time work. Each time we move, I have to find a new part-time job from scratch. But I knew that when we got married, I find excitement in exploring different places, and we've been married for 4 years now. Our favorite pastime is to discover local spots and visit them together on Oliver's days off. His next assignment is close to his parents' home. We've always rented apartments, and finding a new place is a hassle. If we're moving again in a year, living with his folks isn't a terrible idea. That's how I justified it to myself. I think we get along with my in-laws, at least on the surface. We don't see them often, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and my father-in-law Aiden is usually away from work, so we haven't had many deep conversations. As for my Mile Isabella, she's a busybody and a chatterbox, to put it nicely. Whenever we visit, she talks about some neighbor, and I have no clue who they are or why their story should interest me. I just laugh it off, mostly. But I figured we could tough it out for a year. Boy, was I wrong. A month later, actually Oliver and I headed to his parents' home. We're saying goodbye to a place we've lived for 2 years. With that thought, we got into the car. We knew his job required a lot of moving, so he kept our belongings to a minimum. So minimal that even the moving company was surprised. When we arrived, Aiden and Isabella greeted us warmly. "Thank you for having us." I handed over the gift and bowed my head. Aiden responded gruffly, while Isabella gladly accepted the gift with a smile. The next morning, I woke up to find that Aiden and Isabella were already up. "Bella, you're just waking up now. Oliver will be late if you don't hurry up." Even though she said just now, it's only 5:30 because my husband leaves early. But confused, I tried to help with breakfast, but Isabella scolded me. "Stop giving Oliver all that caffeine. It's bad for him. My husband always has coffee before leaving for work." So when I went to make coffee, she criticized me like that. As he prepared to leave for work, my husband came to my defense. "Mom, I asked for the coffee. I can't think straight without it." Hearing this, Isabella glared at me, but broke into a smile. "Fine, then I'll make it." And so, she snatched the coffee pot from my hands and started brewing it. From the get-go, things weren't going well. I optimistically thought I would get used to it eventually. That notion was shattered just 2 months later. I'd started a part-time job about half a month after we moved. Isabella was a housewife. As when I got home in the evening, only Isabella was there. She approached me and said, "Do you really need to work part-time?" I couldn't help but ask her to clarify. People talk, you know. It doesn't look good for a wife to be out working. I was puzzled and surprised that people still think that way. I couldn't respond directly, so I just laughed it off. As when I told my husband that night, he said he'd also talked to Isabella about it, which relieved me. But it ended up making Isabella even angrier. You told Oliver, "What kind of wife are you?"
Besides that you told Oliver. Guess you're 7. What kind of wife are you?
I had no intention of tattling, but looking back. I feel like that's when Isabella started seeing me as an enemy. I thought I was managing to get by, skirting around Isabella, 2 months after moving into my in-laws' home. But then, out of the blue, we received startling news. Oliver's brother and his wife were expecting a child. They said they wanted to have the baby here since her parents live far away. Eden and Isabella were more than happy to have Lily move in. And so, starting from the next week, Lily, my sister-in-law, became our new housemate.
Oh, Bella, could you please get Lily a drink quickly? And buy a blanket, we don't want her getting cold. Now, I think...
Ever since Lily moved in, it's like I've become the housemate. If I cook, I get told it's not fit for a pregnant woman. If I clean, it's "You can't let a pregnant woman do that. Hurry up." All the household chores are on me, while Lily either snacks, watches TV, or scrolls through her phone. I understand that being pregnant isn't easy, so that's okay. But she won't even look me in the eyes, let alone say thank you. Isabella takes care of Lily, serving her drinks and snacks. Yet, all these are items I've bought. It feels unfair. I was putting up with it because we're living under their roof. But one day, Lily said to me, It must be nice living with kind-hearted Isabella. The kind-hearted Isabella. What are you talking about? I swallowed those words and brushed it off with a forced smile. Still, Isabella responded to Lily, smiling. Well, sure. Oh, I felt isolated, but given that we're staying with them and she's pregnant, I just let it slide. And then the incident happened. Lily had a prenatal checkup, and I had to drive her there. Neither Aiden nor Isabella can drive, so we had no choice but to use my car. It would have been fine, except they only told me 30 minutes before we had to leave. As I was getting ready to go to my part-time job, Isabella frantically told me to take the day off. But I'm already running late.
So what? Oh, it's just a part-time job. We'll be fine if you're not there. Fine if you're not there. And now bring the car around.
It's just a part-time job. I was irritated for a moment.
You don't make much from your part-time job anyway. You can afford to miss it. You can't have kids, so Lily's child will be the first grandchild. Get it? Oh, the first grandchild, the one we've all been waiting for.
Is this what they call grandbaby fever? I couldn't help but smirk, recalling an article I read online. Normally, I'd lose my temper by now, but my husband's job contract lasts only 1 year. Even if I started looking for a new apartment now, with less than 10 months left, there's not much point in making the move. So, I had been gleefully watching Isabella dote on her grandchild-to-be, counting down the days until I could move out. But then, her next words made my blood boil.
So while we're at it, Ustad, how did you get yourself checked out?
What?
An infertility test, of course. You haven't done one, have you? Serious or onto what canal, so whatever unfertile, you might as well leave this house.
I gave Isabella a little pushback, trying to hide my frustration. Etchmal's to well. I'm off to my part-time job. I heard her yelling something behind me, but I ignored it and went to work. But the unfair treatment continued. Isabella took meticulous care of Lily, while constantly bossing me around. I thought about talking to my husband, but didn't want to be accused of tattling, so I just went on listening to them without much thought. Isabella and Lily seemed to have conspired against me. They only picked on me when Aiden and Oliver weren't around. Aiden, though gruff, seemed to be on my side, and Isabella sensed it. She acted like the perfect mother-in-law when he was around. There are only 3 months left until Lily gives birth. I have to hang in there. That's what I kept telling myself.
Well, please hurry up and hang the laundry. And clean up. Look, it's dirty over there.
Still, we're out of drinks. Go buy some, will you? That's the same old scenario when Aiden and Oliver left for work. The two of them barking orders while sitting comfortably.
I'll take this to Lily's room, quick.
Bella pushed a large sofa towards me. Wait, I have to move this by myself. Just as I started dragging it, I sensed someone at the front door. Oliver. My husband was standing there, still in his suit. That's when Isabella hurled some laundry from the living room.
I told you to clean this up.
Seeing this, my husband completely lost it. Seems he came back to grab something he forgot, but that was the least of his concerns now. Mom! What's going on? I followed him into the living room, where Isabella looked at me with a surprised expression.
Well, Bella said she could handle the chores, so I left them to her.
Isabella tries to put on a brave face, but when my husband confronts her, she gets unreasonably angry. Look, we're the ones providing a roof over your heads. You should be serving us as your landlords. Besides, I'm about to be a grandmother to my first grandchild. Shouldn't you have chosen a wife who can have kids? It's my husband's boiling at this point, but I step in before he can explode. Enough is enough. We appreciate the place to stay, but we're paying our share, right? If you're going to bring up money, then at least let me work part-time. You had me quit my job to take care of Lily, remember? Also, a child is a blessing. Stop comparing us. What's up with that attitude? You're living off us? Fine. We'll leave, like right now. I look at my husband, and he nods in agreement. Luckily, he has the day off tomorrow. We decide to pack up and leave as soon as possible. But to start, my husband and I dropped by my parents' house to explain the situation and leave some of our belongings there. My parents offered a suggestion to my apologetic husband. Why don't you live here if Oliver can still commute to work? My childhood home is a two-family house where my parents and grandparents used to live. Since my grandparents passed away, the second-floor living space has been vacant. They said we could move in right away with some cleaning, so my husband gratefully accepted and we decided to live there. The corporations, or the toii, though the commute for my husband got a bit longer. It wasn't unbearable. Ochin life, for the two of us, was comfortable. A week later, a call comes from Lily. Bella, you need to come pick me up for my prenatal checkup. I sigh. Why should I have to do that? You can take a taxi. It's a waste of money. Well, I don't want to waste my money picking you up either. I've had enough, and tell her what's on my mind. I hang up the phone. Another week goes by, and there's another call. But it's from Isabella this time. Bella, please come back. I'm taken aback by her sudden plea. It's Lily. She's treating me like her personal servant. Today, she even threw food at me because she didn't like it. So what do you expect me to do? I hold back the words at the tip of my tongue and just let her vent. Plus, she says she's staying here for a while after the baby's born and I'm supposed to take care of everything. I can only sigh. Hello? Are you even listening? No, not really. I really want to give her a piece of my mind, but I reluctantly engage in the conversation.
How, so isn't it great? Oh, you get to take care of your first grandchild. How wonderful.
What? What are you talking about? Why do I have to do all the cumbersome tasks like changing diapers and giving baths? That's a mom's job. That's how it was done in our time. I can't keep it in any longer. With that thought, I unleash all the pent-up frustrations I've been holding back.
I'll chill. I don't care how things were done back in the day. Can't you handle simple childcare? Oh, isn't this your adorable grandchild? I took care of that not-so-adorable Lily and her child, you know. Taking care of a grandchild shouldn't be a big deal. Besides, Aunt Lily is worse. She throws away the food I make, if she doesn't like it or throws the towels I bought her when she says she doesn't like them. Babies don't do such things, so it'll be fine. Actually, as your first grandchild, you should be able to handle it.
After saying all that, I somehow started to feel good about myself.
Since you've been using me all along, why doesn't Lily contribute for a change? I knew this would happen once I was gone. Lily, being the youngest and cherished daughter, who's 5 years younger, is probably adored at home. She must feel entitled to get things from others. You may have conspired against me when I was around, but didn't you see this coming? Oh, by the way, I got a call from Lily. She says you aren't listening to her or helping her at all. Oh, birds of a feather. I guess, enjoy each other's company.
And with that, I hung up the phone, chuckling. After that, I hear Isabella has been struggling with taking care of Lily and her first grandchild. And believe it or not, I just found out I'm pregnant. My husband is thrilled, and we're both looking forward to our baby's arrival. This is our frustrations with each other piled up, leading my husband and me to decide on a divorce. But since then, our daughter started growing distant for some unknown reason. After the divorce, I planned to have sole custody of her, but she flatly refused. When I asked why, an unbelievable truth came spilling out of her mouth. My name is Ophelia, and I'm 40 years old. I've been married to Eugene for 15 years. We have a daughter named Charlotte who just entered 8th grade this year. Charlotte has always been a mommy's girl, always clinging to me saying, "I'm mom." But over the past few months, she's become increasingly cold towards me. And first, I thought I was imagining it and didn't think much of it, but something's definitely off. Bachuri used to go shopping and eat out together just a short while ago. She even used to suggest these outings, but lately, those invitations have disappeared. Hey, Charlotte. I heard there's a new cafe nearby. Want to check it out? Without missing a beat, Charlotte said, "No? Oh, all right. How about the shopping mall in the next town? You were asking Dad for some new clothes the other day, right?" I said I'm not going. But not bugging me. Don't talk to me. Wait, it's like she can't stand even being in the same room with me. She leaves for another room as soon as I speak. This time, she slammed the door and left the living room. She's only in 8th grade. Could this be teenage rebellion? But if that were the case, why is she so hostile toward me and only me? She seems to talk normally with her dad. I'm worried about her, but I can't focus only on that. That's because at this time, my divorce talks with my husband were moving forward. Eugene and I met 16 years ago. It was on an outdoor tour that I whimsically decided to join, and we hit it off. We started dating soon after and got engaged within just 6 months. In short, we got married in the heat of the moment. Since we met on an outdoor tour, Eugene is genuinely passionate about doors. That's unlike me, who joined on a whim. He invites me to go camping or hiking almost every week. But doing this week after week is both physically and financially exhausting. Ophelia, where do you want to go this weekend? Are we going somewhere again? That's what makes our weekends fun, right? Yeah, but it costs money, and I'm pretty wiped out from work. Don't be like that. Being in nature is good for us. Anyway, I'll make plans. Alright. This was how our plans often got made, almost like I was being forced into them. If I said no, he'd get upset. To keep the peace, I just went along. A year after we got married, I found out I was pregnant. When I told him, he cried tears of joy. Maybe now he'd tone down the weekend outings. I thought, he didn't drag me hiking while pregnant, but his love for the outdoors didn't change. Hey, I'm not feeling up to it today. Could you handle the housework? I was dealing with morning sickness, but he didn't seem to care. Housework. Sorry. I'm going hiking with my buddies. Wait, you didn't mention that. Did I forget? But I can't even get out of bed. I'm not well. No choice. I already made plans. What, you want me to cancel? I'm pregnant, you know? What if something happens? Chill, nothing's gonna happen. It's too early for anything. You're being dramatic. He had the nerve to say this while barely glancing at me, struggling to get out of bed. The days went by, each harder than the last because of his carelessness. Then one day, I got a call from a friend. It's been a while. What's up? Ignoring my greeting, my friend lowered her voice. Is your husband doing okay? Yeah, same old outdoor obsession. Why? Turns out he seems to be cheating. What? Cheating? Caught off guard. I raised my voice. The other woman is from his hiking group. I happened to see them. I can't believe it's him. Unbelievable. Uttering to myself, they ask, are you okay? Uttering to myself, my friend asks, are you okay? I'll send the evidence photos for now. I thought this was bad, so I happened to capture it. Thank you. I hung up and felt like everything went dark. He was cheating while I was pregnant. That the friend he'd been going out with was actually his mistress. Before divorce crossed my mind, but I had to think of the baby. As if for the baby's sake, I needed to hold my temper. Later, when I confronted him with the truth, he came clean easily. Tell me the truth. Why did you cheat? In a soft voice, he finally admitted, I felt lonely. And well, so that gives you the right to do whatever you want. No, that's not what I mean. You have a family. Show some responsibility. I'm really sorry. I won't do it again. Please forgive me. We decided to continue our marriage based on his promise that he wouldn't do it again. I'll sees. I even had him sign a pledge stating he would owe me $50,000 in damages if he cheated again. I'm past and I safely gave birth to our daughter. He was genuinely happy for her birth, crying tears of joy, but trust was not restored for me. I didn't divorce him because he was, and still is, a good dad to our daughter. In fact, after our daughter was born, he truly became a great dad. His frequent outdoor activities dwindled, and he started taking good care of her. Instead, he began to spend the money he'd used for outdoor activities on toys and clothes for our daughter. Well, it would be okay if it were for necessities, Most of the things he bought were on a whim. Buying unnecessarily expensive items or things in the wrong size. Eugene, you know Charlotte can't wear the dress you bought today, right? I told you her size. No matter how much I pointed it out, he never took it to heart. But on the contrary, he would get angry at my criticism. That was the only size they had in that design. But what's the point if she can't wear it? Stop nagging. It's a bit small, but she can still wear it. I bought it for her, so quit complaining. For whom did he buy it? Who does he think he is? How many unwearable dresses has he bought just this month? Active by now, the anxiety I felt towards him, including the affairs, had already piled up and would continue as our daughter grew older. Of course, I never told our daughter about his affairs. He might have sensed my coldness because he started staying out late for overtime, coming home past midnight. Although our relationship had cooled for many years, we had just about managed to keep our marriage intact, all for our only daughter, Charlotte. But in the last few months, Charlotte's behavior has changed dramatically. She doesn't even offer basic courtesies anymore, yet she acts normally around him, ignoring me to speak to him. Why on earth? In stark contrast to my cheating husband. I've been a dedicated mom. Eugene comes home late and is often absent on weekends. I'm the one who is consistently connected with her as a parent. As we near the end of our divorce talks, I find myself panicking. I intended to have sole custody of our daughter, but what if she chooses him? The thought is unbearable. Frustrated by my daughter Charlotte's behavior, I decided it was time for a serious talk. Hey, Carlot, have I done something to upset you?
What? Why the sudden question?
I think you know what I'm talking about. Their attitude towards me has been pretty icy, hasn't it?
So what if it is? It's my life.
I want to understand why you're acting this way. If I've done something wrong, I want to make it right. Charlotte just sighed, not changing her expression. Talking like this was getting us nowhere. Feeling cornered, I decided to let her in on the fact that her dad and I were getting divorced. Charlotte, your dad and I are going to divorce soon.
So what?
I lied it. I didn't want to spring this on you, but I'd like us to live together after the split.
Why? I'm going to live with Dad.
What?
Are you surprised? Did you think I'd choose you?
My daughter fired off cruel words with a contemptuous look on her face. I had never seen this side of her, and I was at a loss for words. Seeing my stunned reaction, she continued,
I'm going with Dad, no matter what you say. I can't stand living with someone.
Terrible. Wait, what do you mean?
Playing dumb? You think I don't know? I've known about the divorce for a while.
So?
Who else? Ed told me. He also told me what a terrible person you are.
What do you mean? Charlotte continued to take my husband's side, glaring at me. Something was definitely wrong here. So, I tried my best to convince her. Charlotte, you'll be going to high school and college soon. You can't be with your dad. He's too financially unstable. I want sole custody for your sake. I went on to tell her how unstable my husband's life was and why it worried me. My heartfelt plea was I'd really like you to stay with me. So, Charlotte, I want you to come with me. I promise to work harder than ever. But what came out of her mouth was unbelievable.
Don't be ridiculous. You're the one having an affair. The blaming Dad and trying to deceive me. That's awful.
What? An affair.
It's Dad's fault that we're tight on money. You're giving our money to your lover, aren't you? And yet you blame it all on Dad.
Wait a minute. What are you talking about?
According to G and Eatery, the Orstritation, Atta told me everything. I don't need a lying, cheating mom.
I felt a surge of anger throughout my body. He fed her such lies. He's the one who cheated, yet he's making me out to be the villain, trying to rob our daughter of her future. Absolutely unforgivable. First things first, I have to clear up my daughter's misunderstanding. So, I decided to disclose a long-hidden truth to her.
Charlotte, listen to me. I never cheated.
What? You expect me to believe that now?
It's not a lie.
I firmly grasped Charlotte's shoulders.
I would never cheat, especially with you, my dear Charlotte, in the picture. In fact, it was Dad who cheated.
What?
When I told my daughter about the past affair, Charlotte looked down, her face turning pale, in the awkward silence. I spoke gently.
I'm sorry this is happening so suddenly. But you needed to know the truth.
Then Charlotte looked sternly at me.
You still have those photos of Dad's affair that my friend took, right?
Yes, I do have them.
Show me. Just do it. I want to believe you. Mom.
With my daughter's earnest gaze, I felt compelled to respond. I took out the photos from the back of a drawer and handed them to her. After taking a deep breath,
I'm sorry. Mom, I shouldn't have assumed things without hearing your side.
It's okay. No need to apologize.
I said awful things because Dad seemed so sincere. I thought he was the one telling the truth. I'm sticking with you. Mom, I don't trust Dad anymore.
Tears welled up in her eyes as she clearly stated her choice. And so, the misunderstanding was resolved, and my daughter chose to stand by me.
A few days later, Charlotte told me Dad's still cheating.
When he asked her to explain, she told me that she found numerous pictures of Dad's affair on his cell phone. Since she didn't have her own phone yet, she would borrow his from time to time. Knowing about the past affair, she thoroughly searched his phone for my sake. She found the evidence and transferred the photos to my phone without Dad finding out. That's now that I had irrefutable proof. I decided it was time to talk to my husband about divorce.
Eugene, it's time for us to divorce, don't you think?
Continuing from the previous scenario, the husband was visibly shaken by my words.
Hey, stop it. Not in front of Charlotte.
Why? But this involves Charlotte too, doesn't it?
Baby, but fine. As we agreed before, no Almy. I'll take Charlotte with me.
He said it so casually, as if it was a given that our daughter would go with him. Edging by Charlotte's cold behavior toward me, he seemed overly confident. Then our daughter looked at me and smiled.
Mom, I want to go with you.
That was Charlotte. So, didn't I explain everything to you?
You did. You said Mom is cheating, that she's giving money to her lover. See? That's why you should go with me, your dad. You're lying about Mom's affair, aren't you?
What is...
I know everything. As did tuition, about your spending habits and your past affairs.
How did you...
It's disgusting that you lie to get me on your side.
At this, the color drained from my husband's face, replaced by a look of utter despair. Charlotte continued.
You're still cheating, aren't you? Dad?
What talk we run? What are you talking about?
Your phone is full of pictures of your affair. Nick's big mistake, lending it to me, thinking I was on your side.
Else didn't want you my phone.
Charlotte's gaze hardened and she yelled.
At this comfortwerkchen, you're cheating, yet you blame Mom and even lie to me. You're not just a terrible dad, you're a terrible human being. I don't trust you anymore, and you're no longer family to me. Only Mom is my real family. I will never forgive you.
And apparently, these words from his beloved daughter were too much. My husband sat down, tears forming in his eyes. He just looked down, as if searching for words he couldn't find. Later, we successfully got divorced. Thanks to having made a prenuptial agreement, I managed to receive a clean $50,000 in alimony from my husband. He's left with nothing but debt and seems to be hounded daily by debt collectors. But unable to manage even basic household chores, he lives amidst heaps of trash. As for me, I live happily with Charlotte. She's back to her kind self. Now that she knows the whole story, she's back to her kind self.
Mom, there's a new dessert shop in the next town.
Really? Wanna go?
Yes, take me.
Alright, we'll go on my next day off.
Really? Day.
I may feel bad about taking her away from her father, but I have no regrets. Seeing the look on my daughter's face, I know I made the right choice. I'll continue to shower her with love and will live happily ever after. I'm committed to loving this child who believes in me for the rest of my life. I found divorce papers as a result of my immediate e-filing.
You're jetting off abroad for vacation and you call yourself a wife? How listen at people and you must be joking.
But it's not a vacation. I'm attending a wedding ceremony.
Shut up. Egg exercise, net, you're married. You shouldn't leave the house. Do you want to get a divorce?
The person relentlessly railing at me is none other than my husband. Since when did my gentleman turn into a guy like this? But being restricted, even from attending my best friend's wedding, feels like being a slave. It's with a life like this. I had reached my limit. Look forward to it, okay? I'll send you straight to hell in no time. My name is Emily. I'm 29. I leveraged my experience of working part-time in a clothing store during my student days, and I became an independent entrepreneur 2 years ago. I opened an online boutique that sells clothes and accessories. A little before starting my own line. I married my boyfriend Nick. It was thanks to him that I was able to start my own business. In the beginning, I struggled to get my business on track, and I fell down so many times. Nevertheless, I managed to overcome it all thanks to Nick. Every time I faced some challenge, he would always say with a smile, "Emily, you'll be fine, even if things are hard now. There will surely come a time when you'll succeed."
I hope so, but if things don't get better, I'll even be a burden to you. Vic, don't worry about it. I want to support you, Emily, and I want to be there for you.
But I would earn better if I get employed like I used to.
You always said you wanted your own shop. Emily, didn't you? Why'd so? That dream has come true now. I'm here right by your side, so let's try a little harder together.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks. Pretty Nick. I'll do my best.
It's with the support of my husband. I decided to continue running my shop. I took full advantage of Sens for marketing and aimed for my business to get more exposure online. Thanks to that, I managed to significantly increase the number of customers. My target base is of a wide age range, so I have a large number of users. Well, everything is done online, so I don't have to pay rent or labor costs. Above all, it can do it alongside housework at home, so I can continue working without feeling overwhelmed. Things are stable now, and I earn a decent income. Although my business took off, there was one thing bothering me. And it was that my husband was becoming more and more indifferent towards me day by day. As my business did better, I felt his words and actions becoming colder. I think it all started over something simple. A few months ago, the sales from the previous month had finally reached my target. Most times I was so happy, and at the same time, my feeling of gratitude for my husband even grew deeper. That night, I immediately brought up the news to my husband, who returned from work.
Nick, oh listen.
Sure, Emily. What's the matter? You seem in such a hurry.
I finally did it. I hit my sales target for last month.
You set your goal pretty high, didn't you? Guess we've been pretty close for a while, but I finally hit the target last month. Thanks to you for supporting me. Thank you. Good for you. I'm tired today. I'm gonna take a shower and go to bed.
After leaving his bag on the sofa and leaving the living room, my husband went to sleep without even eating the dinner I had prepared. What happened? He'd been so supportive, so I thought he'd be thrilled. But his reaction was lukewarm at best. Was he just really tired? I'd expected us to celebrate together, so my husband's response came as a surprise. That said, there's no way I could force my tired husband to be happy. And from then on, his demeanor towards me gradually grew colder each day. At first, I thought it was just because he was tired or not in the mood, but as this went on for weeks, even I started to feel uncomfortable. Except before I knew it, he started looking down on me at every opportunity. But as whenever I was on my computer, he'd stand behind me, sneering while peeking at the screen. What? Checking your sales? You timed it to show me the screen on purpose? I'm trying to brag or something. What are you talking about? I have no such intentions. Nick, you peeped at the screen by yourself. Huh. What kind of wife stays on her laptop when her husband's home? Or what? Are you trying to show off saying I'm so busy with work or something? It's not like that. You've been so cold to me lately. Nick, did I do something wrong? Despite being shocked by my husband's cold attitude, I still asked him about his true feelings. Then he sighed with an air of annoyance and blurted out, "Phew, it's exhausting. I come home tired from work, and why do I have to deal with someone so emotional? Fictional. Why do you always speak like that? I just wanted to share some good news with you because I've been trying hard and you've always supported me. That's what pisses me off about you. I couldn't care less about your sales. Instead of getting excited about such things, try improving your housekeeping skills a bit." Hey, there's no need to talk like that. What I'm saying is right, isn't it? Quit showing off how busy you are with work. Do it again, and I'm out of here. Got it? That's being told such things by my beloved husband. My mind was in turmoil for a moment. My heart filled with emptiness, and before I knew it, a tear was trickling down my cheek. Instead of apologizing, he had a sneering smile on his face. A demonic smile I'd never seen before. I was taken aback by my husband, who could show such expression without hesitation. From that day on, his attitude only worsened. I was no longer allowed to speak freely as I used to, and I always had to walk on eggshells around him. Then one day, I found a wedding invitation from my best friend in our postbox. I went to middle school and high school with Alina, and we've always been close. We kept in touch regularly, even after we became adults. That's when she got married. I remember being excited, as if I was the one who got married. I came back to missions. Now, she's abroad with her husband, and the invitation said the ceremony would take place overseas. I've been stressed about my husband, so this was great news to me. It felt like a ray of light in my oppressive daily life. I was thinking of when to tell my husband about this. Before I could bring it up, my husband found the invitation on the table. He read through the invitation and approached me with a clearly sour expression. "Hey, what's this?" "It's clearly a wedding invitation. It's from my best friend." "Alina, but this is taking place abroad. You're not going, right?" "Huh, of course. I'm going." As I said that, my husband slammed his hand on the table with a devilish look on his face. He let out a deep voice I'd never heard before. "You've gotta be kidding me. While I'm working my butt off day in, day out, you're just lounging around at home on the computer, and you're planning on skipping housework again just because of a wedding." "No, you've got it wrong. That's not it. I just want to attend Alina's wedding." "Shut up. You're married. You shouldn't leave the house. Do you want to get a divorce?" Being so casually threatened with divorce, I froze on the spot. He continued his tirade mercilessly. "I feel bad for your best friend, too. You're only using her wedding as an excuse to leave home and not to celebrate her marriage." "What are you saying? It's my best friend's wedding. I'm attending only because I want to celebrate it. Just what's so hard to understand?" "Oh, you're so annoying. quit being so cocky because your business took off. It's your attitude that ticks me off. When will you get it, huh? My husband shouted at me, our noses nearly touching. Overcome with fear, my legs gave way beneath me. Seemingly amused by my reaction, he said, "Look, you should be grateful I married a woman like you. You were lucky your business took off, and it was only because of my support. Act na belt for meg teens. Now, shut up and just do as I say." At that, he shoved the wedding invitation into the trash can. At the moment he did that, I felt my blood rush back into my body. At this point, I was so infuriated that it would have been an understatement to say that my blood was boiling. He'd not only thrown away my dear friend's invitation, but also insulted my feelings. I was so bitter, and I realized I had unconsciously bitten my lip hard. Unforgivable. Who does he take me for? Just because he hates me doesn't mean he can do whatever he wants. I'm not his slave, and being his wife does not make me his possession. If my days are going to continue like this, I might as well be the one to ruin it all. I don't care. I'm attending Elena's wedding no matter what. Without resisting, I bided my time until the wedding, carefully making preparations for my overseas trip so he wouldn't find out. The day of departure, my silent obedience seemed to have paid off, and he had already forgotten about the wedding. Or before leaving for work, he nagged at me as usual at the front door.
Don't skip your chores today. But make sure dinner is ready. Don't you ever go against me, okay?
I know. Have a good dissection of have a good day.
Both you got it easy, don't you? Boys, you get to lounge around our home every day.
Yeah.
I was the one who pushed you to have your own life. I wish you were more grateful. Maybe I'll cut back my contribution to the household expenses from next month. It's like it doesn't make sense for me to be the only one struggling. Like, that's...
Mumbling such things, my husband left the house. Suppressing the urge to talk back, I patiently waited until he was out of sight. Once I confirmed that Nick was on his way to the station, I immediately began my preparations. I grabbed the suitcase I had prepared in advance, called a cab, and headed for the airport. I then took a flight to meet Elena. When I arrived at the inn she had booked for me, my phone rang. It was my husband. He must have realized that I was gone immediately after returning from work. As soon as I picked up the call, he began to yell.
Hey, Emily, where are you without, even having dinner ready?
I'm at Alina's wedding.
What about it? Do I wanna? I told you not to go, you broke your promise.
I never said I wouldn't go. I also don't remember making such a promise.
Don't mess with me. I've disciplined you over and over to not leave home. You're my wife after all.
Disciplined? What are you talking about? That's just you forcing me to put up with your selfish expectations. Perhaps angered by my defiant attitude, he yelled.
That's it, we're getting a divorce. Look, if you don't want that, come back home now. Assuming in a...
Not waiting for my response, he hung up the phone. No matter what he says, I don't care, because my mind is already made up. After my best friend's wedding, I spent a full day sightseeing before returning to the States. And for Eastery, I arrived home prepared to have a talk with my husband, but he was nowhere to be found. On the table was a divorce paper. He already signed it, and that wasn't it. Then my computer for work was completely smashed, as if to make a statement. Thus, by leaving the divorce papers and breaking my computer, he was probably trying to get back at me. There's not a shred of love left for him and me. I signed the divorce papers on the table and packed my things into my suitcase again. I took the divorce paper and headed to my parents' house. Actually, on my way there, I stopped by the city hall and submitted the divorce paper. But when I arrived at my parents' house, I told them everything that happened. My parents were surprised at first, but their faces hardened as they listened. If Nick were here, my father would have definitely punched him. As I was relaxing at my parents' house, which I hadn't visited for a long time, my phone rang. It was a call from my husband. I didn't expect him to call this soon.
Hello.
It's been a while. Emily, you back in the country, huh?
I got back today. So what?
Straight to your cold, huh? Oh, maybe you were shocked that I filed for divorce, huh?
Fun.
My husband seems to think I'm grieving. He continued in a condescending tone, which was noticeable even over the phone.
Relax. I'm not serious either. I just wanted you to reflect on yourself, so I gave you a little scare.
Reflect on myself. What for?
Those you went abroad without my permission and had the time of your lives.
Had the time of my life. I just attended Elena's wedding.
That's what I mean by having the time of your life. Leaving your husband behind, abandoning your housework, and going on an overseas trip. Rick, you're disqualified as a wife, you little chick.
Enough already. Who do you think you are? Just because we're married, just because you're my husband, you think you have the right to control everything I do.
Oh, what? Emily, enough is enough.
In the end, you just can't stand that I'm successful at work, right? You don't like having a wife who earns more than you. You're such a deadbeat. It's pathetic to be jealous of your wife. If it bothers you, go ahead and make more than I do.
Emily, did you just say that? I'm seriously gonna break up with you.
Go ahead. I filed for divorce. There's no way I can continue being married to a piece of trash like you. Just so you know, if you think you can break me with such threats, you got it wrong. I'm not gonna let you manipulate me. Don't ever show me that disgusting face of yours again, you jerk.
He must have been shocked by my harsh words.
He fell silent, so I said goodbyes and hung up the phone.
Afterwards, I hired a lawyer and billed him for the desktop he destroyed. Moreover, the texts and voicemail messages came in handy. His attempts to control my actions and his constant verbal abuse were proven, and I was able to collect damages. As a result, his savings dwindled, and he was left in debt. His parents refused to help him, saying it was his own doing, and he ended up having to borrow money from loan sharks. Beatrick Lingsons. Now he's stuck in a vicious cycle of borrowing to pay off debt, wandering in hell. He was never a high flyer, and I heard that he made mistake after mistake at work, eventually being sidelined. Tix, on the other hand, I've been living at my parents' home since the divorce. Thankfully, my current job doesn't tie me to a particular location. I can continue my peaceful life at home, and my parents are happy to have me stay with them. This lifestyle will likely continue for a while. Marriage isn't the only way to happiness. The most important thing is to have a family that cares for you. I've come to realize this once again.